You are all welcome to First Influencers channel, where we talk about the latest in the world of sports. Today we have a fine gentleman in the house, which was gracious enough to grant us this interview in the name of Deji, your Deji Omotoyinbo. Please kindly introduce yourself.
Well, good evening, Jide. Good to be here. My name is Deji Omotoyinbo. I'm a sportscaster. That's all I can say. Been in the business since almost 20 years, 1993. Started on radio. I moved to TV in 94. And that's about it. I'm a sportscaster. I present sports shows on radio, TV. I host probably the longest running daily radio show in the Lagos area. It's run today, this year is the 20th year. It started in 2002. And I have a podcast as well, Sports 360 podcast, that's run for like 2-3 seasons now. So, and I do a lot of TV shows locally. I am a resource person for a lot of the major networks in Nigeria, channels, TVC. I present off and on Super Sport. And I'm also a resource person for China Global Television Network. So that's about it. Like I told you before we came on, I'm a bloody sportscaster, nothing more.
I think he's being modest because the gentleman we are privileged to have today is also a facilitator and a resource person at the Lagos Business School. So, I mean, when somebody is being contacted to come and host or to facilitate a program in Lagos Business School, we all know what that means. So, you are welcome once again. It's such a privilege. So we just dive right into it. What happens to this? So we're going to talk about the AFCON program today, the tournament. So please, can you tell us what happened at the sudden departure of Nigeria, the just concluded AFCON tournament in Cameroon?
Well, football happened. That's the way I see it. Football has a way of humbling you. Football has a way of giving you the unexpected. I think it was just a day in the office where the Tunisians got their tactics right, and we didn't respond on time. And when the coach tried to respond, a number of things happened, contrived to, to do him in. And when you have a team that is playing defensively, you give it till about the 55th, 60th minute before you make changes. Unfortunately, we considered what I considered a very cheap goal early in the second half. And when the coach now tried to, because the flanks were not working, they were being Chukwueze and Simon Moses were being effectively double teamed by the Tunisians defensively. So when he tried to change it, not the coach, when Eguavo tried to change it, he tried to play through the middle. He brought Iwobi in to try and play through the middle, attract bodies to the middle. Maybe he will free the wingers. And unfortunately, Iwobi came on and got an unfortunate red card a few minutes after he came on. And that completely threw their plan into disarray. So at times, a combination of factors happen. We've seen teams play match, dominate all through. They just fail to score somehow, and then they lose the game. So I wouldn't, yes, maybe tactically outfoxed on the day. But football happens, things happen in football. And when you go ahead to win a tournament, a lot of things must work for you. One bad error, one bad mistake can do you in. So, having said that, though, notwithstanding, I think it was a decent performance by the Super Eagles. Those of us who have been watching the Super Eagles were being kind of irritated with the performance over the past few weeks, especially the way they just limped over the line in the second round of World Cup qualifiers. But the first week of AFCON kind of revived interest in the Super Eagles because of the way they played, going back to the basics of Nigerian football: pace, power, aggression, wing play, a lot of things that we love to see. So we saw that. Unfortunately, they came unstuck in the second half. But one thing I like to say is that you learn a lot from your defeats than from your victories. So I think for the team, probably that defeat was a timely wake-up call, and the boys will know that, well, they have a lot to learn. They've learned a lot, and going forward, especially with World qualifiers against Ghana, they want to prove themselves again, and then make sure they qualify for the World Cup. So overall, I think it was a decent performance, but football happened to us against Tunisia, and that happens. It can happen to most teams.
Yeah, thank you for that loaded response, because you know, I've been, of course, being a Nigerian, and you know, being here in the UK, and you know, you hear people you know, talk more about the, you know, the hot full exit of Nigerian football. You know, Nigerian what's it called, the Super Eagles of Nigeria. So you know, it was so painful that we've not had the opportunity to, you know, dwell on it. So when you now came on, I just said I just had to ask you this question that have been on people's mind. So we go to the next question. What's your critical analysis of the Egypt and Senegal final?
Well, personally, I think I won't necessarily say the better team. I would say the team that was more deserving of the title won it. Okay. And this is what I mean. The Egyptians, with no disrespect to them, I felt that it would have been, for me personally, it would have been a travesty if Egypt had won the Nations Cup. Why do I say that? They scored only 4 goals in 7 games. You know, they scored only 4 goals in 7 games. 2 of those goals came in 1 match. They failed to score in 4 of their games. They didn't score against Nigeria. They didn't score against Cote d'Ivoire, against Cameroon, and in the final. They didn't score in regular time after 120 minutes of football. In Nigeria, it was 90 minutes because it was a group stage game. The other 3 was 120 minutes of football. Yes, they defended well and all that, but I just felt that they were a bit too deliberate. And when you have a team that keeps trying to, you saw the goalkeeper and what he had on his bottle.
Yes.
When you start a final and you have thought so much of winning on penalties, I think that was a bit of a negative mindset.
Okay.
But if you look at the Senegalese, they started poorly. They had only 1 goal, 1 penalty goal in 3 games. But I think if you remember, they had a lot of COVID issues at the start of the tournament.
Yes.
A lot of their players did. But when they came back, when the Kalidou Koulibalys came back, Mendy's came back, when we got to the knockout stage, their result was 2-0, 3-1, 3-1. They scored 8 goals in 3 games. That was real championship stuff. Overall, they considered only 2 goals in the tournament as well. Wow. You know, so I felt that overall, the team that gave more to the tournament won it. And even the final game, they were on the front foot. I mean, if a goalkeeper is the man of the match, you know that he was made to work. So it means that the Senegalese really attacked. They just came up against a goalkeeper who was in fine form on the day, saved the penalty, made a couple of brilliant saves as well to keep the Senegalese out. So I think football won. I think overall, if Egypt had won, I don't think I would have liked it. I don't know about other people, but I think Senegal won it. They played the more positive football, the more expansive football. They were more forward-looking, and they tried to win the game, and not on the front foot, not on the back foot. Egypt were trying to win the game on the back foot. That's a bit negative. It can happen. You can win, but for the purists, for the neutrals, I think the better team won on the day.
Yeah. It's a good thing that you mentioned something about the goalkeeper having stickers on his water bottle. I think that might affect you know, future competitions, because they might not necessarily allow people to take, you know.
No, but it's not new. It's not new, Jide. It's not new. They do it all the time. Goalkeepers, they do it all the time. It happened, I think, at the World Cup. I think it was Tim Krul of Holland, the World Cup in 2018. I think it was. You can't fault them. You will even see matches where players come onto the pitch with a piece of paper and hand it over. I think it's allowed. You do your research. Yeah, I think it's allowed. There's nothing illegal about it. It's done all over the world. I think it's allowed. You do your research. You want to give yourself an advantage by virtue of the research you've done, which I think is okay. Everybody's allowed to do that. So it's happened before, and it will happen again. It just shows the amount of work people put into scouting the opponent, you know, and that's fine.
Sorry, I mentioned. I'll take us back into what this now, because while I was doing research this morning, on Twitter, some people were saying that is tantamount to cheating. You know,
No.
that how can
Well,
you? So when you now said
it's
it's
not.
allowed
I
now,
mean,
so
it's not. There's nothing. It's not cheating because on the field of play, a coach is. It's not like tennis where you are not allowed to coach
okay,
while the match is going on. We see coaches call their players to the sidelines when there's a break in play and tell them and talk about tactics. We see people do it all the time. There's no. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's not cheating. They did their research, checked out how the other people play, and they tried to come up with an antidote to win the penalty. Unfortunately, they didn't win, but I don't think there's anything wrong with it. In fact, I think it goes to underline why you must do a lot of homework before you come and play. So it's not cheating. He wasn't hiding it. The plastic was there. Plastic bottle was there. The paper was tacked on. It was really, and if people will do their research, it's happened several times before. At the highest level of international football, it's happened at the World Cup before. So it wasn't any. People were talking as if it's new. It's not new at all. It happens. Goalkeepers do their research. They try to find out, give themselves an advantage, and you can't fault them that.
Thanks for that. Like I said earlier on, it's a loaded response that you gave us again. Yeah, let's quickly move on to the next question. What was it that Senegalese team that were able to put in place that took them to the final that the Super Eagles of Nigeria didn't have or didn't put in place?
Well, for me, I think Senegal they've had a bit of a steady team for a fairly long time.
Okay.
And then I think, with all due respect to us, they have a number of what you call world-class players in their team.
Okay.
Edward Mendy, and in departments of the game. In the 4 departments of the game, they have what you call world-class players. They have the goalkeeper who is world-class. Kalidou Koulibaly, a lot of teams have been chasing him. He's a world-class central defender.
Yes.
In midfield, they have a Gueye. You might not call him world class, but he's top class. Kouyaté is top class. I think Nampalys Mendy had a fantastic tournament. And then, of course, Mane out there. The team has a strong spine, an experienced spine, right through the middle of it. And there are a couple of youngsters, Deji Deng, that came on. Ismail Assar, who was injured and had COVID, and then came on towards the end. You could see that I think there was a particular game, I can't remember how they played that. They had a good bench as well. They brought on Kouyaté and Ismail Assar, and they both came on and scored. So, and then they've been very patient with their manager, with their coach. He's been there for 8 years. I'm not sure any African country would have a coach being there for 8 years. He went to the World Cup. He went to the last Nations Cup. He lost in the final. Probably some other coaches would have been sacked. But they were patient with him, and they have reaped the results. So I think that the team, they've been building the team, and they stuck with the manager. The manager believed in his players, and eventually they won it. Once they got to the semi-finals, I actually tipped them to win because I just felt it was their time, and they had done a lot of work over the past couple of years, and they were here now. I just felt it was their time, and that's the way it's panned out. Like I said, it's a very solid team. With not many teams have 3-4 players in there. Not many national teams have 3-4 players you can actually call world class in Africa. And they have that. They have 3-4 players that you can actually compare with the very, very best anywhere in the world. And that's massive for a team like that. I don't think we have that yet. I don't think Nigeria has that yet. We are probably building up to it. But I honestly don't think we have a goalkeeper in the mold of Mendy or a defender like Koulibaly. You can argue that we haven't in central midfield who is
exactly. I was going to say that.
All those other players. Yeah. And in attack, I don't really think we have any player with the quality of Mane. Osimhen is coming up, but he still has a few weeks to go to get to Mane. So I think they have a better team. They built it over time. And really, that's why they were number 1 in Africa. There's a reason they're number 1 in Africa. And there's a reason they were the pre-tournament favorites, actually, in many people's books. It's just that they started poorly. That's why a lot of people, they were pre-tournament favorites, but they started poorly, so a lot of people kind of lost hope in them. But ahead of the tournament, they were heavily tipped to win, and eventually they won.
Okay. The question that came to my mind, you've already answered it, was I was going to say that I didn't think if we had been to the final, do you see us winning, beating this world class players that you just mentioned now? But since you've dwelled on it, or do you still want to say?
Yeah, well, you see, you can beat anything.
Okay.
I don't think the Tunisians, man for man, I don't think the Tunisians are better than us. I think man for man, we're better than Tunisia, but they beat us. Okay. So on the day, superior tactics, getting your tactics right, one bad decision, or maybe the referee, maybe one player is just off form. For instance, we beat the Egyptians the Senegalese couldn't beat the Egyptians in 120 minutes. We beat the Egyptians quite easily, yes. Even though it was 1-0.
Yes.
The game was supposed to have been a 2 or 3-0 victory for us. It was quite comfortable. And Senegal struggled to break them down. So it's always very difficult if Nigeria, and the way Nigeria was going, the momentum was good. If we had gone to the semi-finals, the confidence in the team might have taken them over the hump. But you have to say that at present, Senegalese team appears on the balance of it to be probably the best balanced team on the continent right now. Maybe you can argue about Cote d'Ivoire. They have a lot of sprinkling of very good players too. I mean, they lost out to Egypt on penalties. They could have gone far as well. But the quality of players on the balance of the squad and the depth of the squad, it will be hard for you to see a country that's better stacked than Senegal on the African continent right now.
That's brilliant. And the next question is about the coach. As a player, Aliou Cisse never won any international laurel, and was determined to win as a coach. Do you know anything about his career? Is there something that you can tell us about his career?
Well, Aliou Cisse played majorly in France. I think he played for PSG, he played for Sedan, he played for, I think, Lille, if I'm not mistaken. And then he had a couple of stints in England, Birmingham and Portsmouth. But his claim to fame as a player was being a member or a captain, I think, of that fantastic Senegalese team to the 2002 World Cup that lit up the tournament with the quality of their play before they lost out to Turkey. I think it was in the quarterfinals. I mean, they defeated Sweden, they defeated France, they had some excellent games. And, after that, the golden generation, their players moved to probably some of the top clubs, Khalifa Diga, Henri Camara, of course, El Hadji Diop, they have Bouba Diop as well. They had this generation, and he was the leader. He was the captain. 2002, they lost out in the final of the African Nations Cup before they came to the World Cup. They lost out in the final, and Aliou Cisse was one of those that missed a penalty in the final against Cameroon. So it just underlines that for the man, he had been there as a captain, he lost out. He had been there as a coach, he lost out, but he persevered. Critically, his country's FA persevered with him. But as a player, he showed, it's very difficult for you to know which player will become a good coach.
Yes.
But he had shown excellent leadership qualities as a player with that Senegalese team I mentioned that 2002 team. He had shown great leadership qualities, and he went into coaching. And you can see after the final, after the game, the way his players responded to him, the way some of the ex-players, Khalilou Fadiga, came on the pitch. The emotional connection, you know that he's somebody that they have a lot of respect for. Sadio Mane said in an interview I saw during the tournament that he had never seen a coach that is so horribly criticized. In Senegal, he was horrendously criticized, especially after their first 3 games that they didn't play so well. But tournaments are probably about pacing yourself to peak at the right time. And I think they picked at the right time, even though they eventually won on penalties. You have to say that Aliou Cisse had been showing a lot of leadership qualities as a player, became a coach, and he steered the team to a first ever. For Senegal, with the quality they have, with the pedigree they have, it's surprising that they're just winning this for the very first time. But he's achieved that now. They are all legends in their country, and I'm really, very, very happy for them. Maybe apart from, if you are not an Egyptian, most people are very, very happy for Senegal winning this tournament.
Okay. All right, that's a nice one. Oh my God. You said if your one is not an Egyptian, so it's only when you're an Egyptian that you will not be happy.
Well, naturally, Egyptians will not be happy, but
Yeah.
most neutrals, most people from across the world, I think they were very happy, especially Lissise and then Mane. Between Mane and N'Golo Kante of Chelsea and France, I don't know any other footballers that are so loved across the world for their humility and the way they carry themselves. Those two are very much loved. And if you read the Mane story, real underdog story, came from very indigent backgrounds. Those stories inspire a lot of people.
Yes.
And a lot of people identify those kind of stories. And when they become winners, they are inspirational stories that can inspire millions and millions of young kids across the world. So it's a fantastic story. And the guts that he showed to miss a penalty during the game and come back to take that decide, because what if he missed? What if he missed? But the assuredness with which he took that penalty, the confidence, and you have to respect that. And you have to be happy for Mane, because I think he thoroughly deserves it.
Yeah, yes, sure. Can you name 3 players that stood out for you in the Senegalese team?
Okay, they had quite a lot of excellent performers right through the team. They are very consistent, but I'll mention 3. Nampalys Mendy, who hardly gets to play at Leicester. He had an excellent tournament all through, playing in that central midfield role. He mopped up. He was excellent. He was box to box. He was supporting the attack. He was winning balls back. He was mopping through balls. He was very, very good. And it was one of the reasons why defensively they were so very strong and considered only 2 goals in that tournament. I'll mention him. I'll mention Sis, their left back, who also was very good defensively, but also gave them an extra dimension down that left. Bombing up and down that left side. He really impressed me, especially in the latter stages, the semi-finals and finals. I really picked him up. And of course, Mane as well. Some big moments in the tournament. The first game against Zimbabwe, they struggled. They had a last-minute penalty. He was there. He tucked it in. The game against, I think, Burkina Faso semi-final, Burkina Faso threatening to come back. They were 2-0 up. He had made an assist for the second goal. Burkina Faso was threatening to come back, came to 2-1, and then that breakaway, Burkina Faso made a mistake. He broke away, and the confidence that they aplomb which he put that goal away to make it 3-1 and end the game was critical. And of course, in the final, he missed a crucial penalty, but his head didn't drop. He kept trying, and at critical moments when they needed somebody to convert the penalty, converted, and they won. So for me, Mendy, they had a lot of fantastic performers. You can go right through the team and mention so many other people. But if you say 3, I'll go with Mendy, Sis, the left back, and Mane.
No, that's brilliant. Just a comment on some of our followers. A lady by the name of Josephina Bimbola said, "Mr. Omotoyinbo is a sports guru. Let no one wave him off with a soft spoken nature." So you can see they know it's just for people that doesn't know. This person that we are opportunity to have today is such a privilege to have you once again. Thanks for coming on. We really appreciate you.
It was my pleasure.
And, let's quickly go to the next question, which is Twitter went agog this morning about the celebration of the Senegalese when they go back to their country. What's your view about the? I'm sure you must have come across the celebration.
If you saw those pictures and those videos, you would know what football means to Africa. In that country, for the next 2-3 months, the feel-good factor, everybody will be walking on cloud 9. Every child in that country who has an ability to play football will be dreaming of
Yes.
playing for the Teranga Lions. You
Yes.
know, it happened here before. I remember the day I was a broadcaster, the day we won the Olympic gold in Atlanta. It was
Wow.
crazy,
Yes.
absolutely crazy in
Yeah.
Lagos. And some fans, our studio was on the top floor of a 22-story building, and we had fans who climbed those stairs because the lifts had been put off. They climbed those stairs to come into the studio just to come and celebrate with us.
My goodness.
22
25th floor.
flights of stairs. Yeah. So if you saw those pictures from Dakar earlier today, it tells you what football means. And that's why I'll go to this. The rest of the world, Europe, the so-called top clubs in Europe, and the other people that are trying to stop this tournament, FIFA, they should please. It's very
Yes.
disrespectful.
Yes.
Football means a lot to Africa. Imagine if this tournament had not held. Look at the
Yes.
kind of tournament we've had. Look at the kind of fantastic ball we've had. Look at the likes of Comoros, Gambia, all those teams that do
Yes.
so well.
Mhm.
Look at all the fantastic players that have been discovered. Look at all of that. And imagine if the tournament wasn't played because some people felt a bit uncomfortable. They need to respect Africa. You know, 2020 was played across 11 cities, 11
Yes.
countries at the height of COVID,
Yes.
and finally packed the stadiums.
True.
But now you're talking about a competition that is going to be played in one country. You are
Country.
suddenly raising issues about COVID and all of that. I think it's very disrespectful. With all due respect to Jurgen Klopp, he tried to explain it away. But what he actually said, he actually referred to it as a little tournament.
Yeah.
He didn't say a little matter of.
Mhm.
He said there is a little tournament in Africa, and your two best players are African. Yeah,
That's an
by
irony.
record, his two best players over the course of his time at Liverpool are Mane and Salah. You know, so I think the rest of the world needs to take a step back, realize what this tournament means to African and Africans, what it can do for Africans. Imagine Senegalese players now. I bet you Senegalese players will command more money in the European transfer market just by
Yes.
virtue of this way.
Yes. That's
You
true.
know, a lot of scouts will see Senegal as a destination. Look at what
Yes.
it did for Nigeria, that 94 team did for Nigeria in terms of recognition. Look at what Senegal's 2002 team did for them
Mm-hmm.
as a country, like I mentioned earlier, how their players went to be with the top clubs in the world. So the rest of the world needs to respect this tournament. And I'm very glad that this tournament has proved the quality, the so-called small teams, the way they played, fearless. And that's why I was very happy that, because if Egypt had won, you can be sure that the Western media will pull up those stats
True.
and tell you the African champions scored only 4 goals in 7 games. They will pull those stats up
Yes. Yes.
as a way of downplaying it. You know, at the early stages when it was 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, for instance, the incident that happened with the referee, they were trying to milk so much out of it when the referee made a mistake and all that. It happened in Spain. A referee, in fact, they had gone to the dressing room and he had to call them back and all that.
Yeah, I think
At
I
the
remember.
last World Cup, we had an English referee that gave 3 yellow cards.
Yes. Yes. I
You know,
remember those.
so these things happen, but when they happen here, you try to milk it like it's some terrible thing. The same attitude happened when South Africa was going to host 2010 World Cup, and all these European, Western countries were talking about crime, blah, 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 blah. Come on.
Yes.
Every country has their issues, every continent has their issues, but it's all about respect. And that's what football preaches. So I'm very
Yes.
glad the tournament took place. I'm very happy for the Senegalese people. And what we saw today in Dakar, Senegal, underlines the importance and the passion that Africans have for football. And the rest of the world should respect that and not disrespect the African Nations Cup. The disrespect for the AFCON leading up to the tournament was quite simply irresponsible on the part of most of these other parts of the world.
Mm. Yeah, I agree with you. Like you rightly said, I feel that football to Africans is a way of coming out of poverty, and that people can make livelihood. So by hosting the competition in Cameroon, and by Senegal winning that competition, it makes a lot, a difference to, like you said, lots of youngsters that will be looking at them as a, oh, so this is a way of me, coming to stardom, not going to crime or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So I think you really made a very good point there. Having said that, the next question now goes, you mentioned something about the officiating, the referees. So this question is just about the referee. What's your view on the officiating officials? What's your of the tournament? Do you think, in your opinion, Victor Gomez pointing, everybody saw when he pointed the whistle and to the time thing to Mo Salah, that do you think the officiating was being mean, or was being targeted against them, or it was being fair? The officiating,
no, I think it was people trying to, we've seen referees across the world tell a player, I'm the referee, let me refer. At that point in time, Mo Salah was arguing every call, harassing the referee. So the referee was being sarcastic and saying, oh, okay, take my whistle and take my card. You want to be the referee? And he made his point, and from that point on, Mo Salah behaved himself. He's like, okay, you are the referee, take the whistle and take the card. I think the referee was being sarcastic, and I really don't read much into that. Again, these are things that the Western world try to over milk and try and turn into a negative thing. The referee was being sarcastic, and Mo Salah behaved himself. I think he had a good performance. There will always be issues. You live in England. Every week in the English Premier League, there are always issues with certain referee decisions. It comes with the territory.
Yes.
It's not like you're seeing the Nations Cup and there were issues with refereeing during the Euros. There will always be issues with the referee. But one thing I liked about the referee, I think Tessema, that handled which game was that? Cameroon's game against, when he had two decisions that went to VAR and overturned. And that was excellent performance by, I think it was Cameroon and Burkina Faso, and was it Burkina Faso, Senegal? Yeah, it was Burkina Faso, Senegal. When he actually Tessema from Ethiopia. Had a fantastic game.
Yeah.
The referee that had Yanni, that had a psychiatrist, that had the issue with the heat stroke and all of that. Mistakes were made, but you and I know that refereeing is controversial across the world.
Mm-hmm.
There is no weekend in the top leagues across the world where you don't have a referee controversy. It comes with the territory, and it's not restricted to the African nations. So I think the performance of referees were as good as anywhere in the world. During this tournament, Brazil played, I think, was it Ecuador in South American World Cup qualifiers? There were 3 red cards in the first 30 minutes. A couple of them were rescinded, though. It was a bloody, quote-unquote, bloody game of football, and the referee had a lot of issues. Nobody talked about that.
No.
But why must it be any issues that come up at the AFCON? I'm very happy that this tournament even though we had issues, were very sad about the stampede and people died and all of that. Yes. I'm not trying to say that African football is perfect, there are issues. Mm-hmm. But what I'm trying to say is that tournament, under the circumstances that it played out, with all the negativity going towards it, I'm sure that tournament delivered a please shut up message to the rest of the world. Please shut up, leave us. We are a fantastic footballing continent. Our football is good enough, comparable to any part of the world. Look at some of the goals by small teams like Malawi, like Comoros.
Yes.
So yes. Yeah, I think we've answered all the doubters. We've silenced all the doubters, and African football can only grow from here.
Yes, I totally agree with all the points you made. So Nigeria, we've always said Nigeria is the giant of Africa. We've always been preaching that. People have been saying that. We're not represented. Nigeria, we're not represented at all when it comes to having any referee whatsoever. Do you think what would be the reason why we never got called upon?
Well, the bottom line is that we had one referee there. He was an assistant referee. Interestingly, this topic is on my latest podcast. The Nigerian referee snub. But we have to be honest with ourselves. Back home in Nigeria, we have issues. The quality of refereeing is not good. A lot of factors. Are responsible for that. I think the only thing I'd like to say about it is let's come home and sort out our issues before we think that our referees would be picked. There are too many issues going on with referees. I don't think the NFF has done enough to improve quality of refereeing. There are too many gray areas. A referee is not feeling secure at the stadium because of lack of security, and he thinks that if he doesn't allow the home team to score, he probably will not go out of that stadium alive. Referees' indemnities are not paid on time. It opens them for corruption. So let's come back and sort out our issues, and then we can reach out to the rest of the world to say, okay, our referees are good enough. But at the moment, I will not blame CAF or even FIFA if they don't appoint Nigerian referees because there are too many issues going on. I think we should just leave it at that.
Okay, thanks for that. Do you think Nigeria is ready for the AFCON tournament of what we witnessed in Cameroon? Do you think we, as a nation, are we ready to take up that responsibility to host tournaments of that nature?
Nigeria can host AFCON. My quarrel with that is, I don't think that should be our priority.
Okay.
I honestly don't think hosting should be our priority. I think there are lots of issues within Nigerian football. There are lots of places where we need to invest money. Developmental football, grassroots. We need to go back to the basics. Instead of spending all that money to host a tournament for 3-4 weeks, I would rather we invest money in development. We are not developing fresh talent. We are not developing the local league. We are not supporting it enough. That's why there's nothing wrong with getting Nigerians in diaspora to come and play for the national team. They are Nigerians just like you and I. But when it becomes a policy that you are actively going around the world looking for anybody that sounds like a Nigerian name to probably come and play for the national team, then it's a problem, because it means that you are not developing talent locally. And there is enough talent to be developed locally. For me, hosting a tournament like that is a flight of fancy, and probably for self-aggrandizement. We've hosted major tournaments before. I do not see what legacies they brought to Nigerian football. We hosted Nations Cup in 2000. We hosted the World Cup, Nigeria 99 under 20. We hosted under 17 in 2009. I cannot think of one legacy that you can pick from those events. So it's not just about hosting and having a feel-good factor for 3-4 weeks. We need to develop Nigerian football. Right now, we all love the Super Eagles and all of that, but Nigerian football is being made to look like it's only about the Super Eagles. No. Our 8th grade tournaments were faltering there. Look at this team that went to the Nations Cup. About 4 or 5 of them came from the 8th grade teams. That's where it should be. But right now, we are more or less non-existent there. So there are a lot of problems in Nigerian football. We need a holistic approach. People are already touting maybe Nigeria come and host 2025. For me, it will just be a jamboree. We won't add anything. We have the capacity to host, and we can brush up enough stadia to host. I'm not saying we don't have the capacity to host, but should that be our priority at the moment? I honestly don't think so. I think we need to address more fundamental issues of grassroots talent development and ensure our league. Look at our league. Right now, this year, there are 2 tiers of African football. There's a CAF Confederations Cup, which is like your UEFA Cup, and then there's a CAF Champions League, like UEFA Champions League. There's no single Nigerian team in either of those tournaments. Not one. So there are fundamental problems. So it's not just about the Super Eagles. Super Eagles is window dressing the problems. And you cannot put up a building from the top. Yes. It has to be from the bottom. So while I know that people are already touting it, the Nigerian way, I'm sorry to say, but money to be made by everybody, money for the boys, the jamboree and all that, we might push it, but really there are more fundamental problems we need to address. If we have that money, we should put that money to other places. Long-term development of talents in football and even in other sports, not only about football.
Thank you for that loaded response that you just made now. And who knows, probably later on, maybe the Minister for Sports in our beloved country might be listening to the points you just made. So probably they will make amendments. We need to go on. What benefit comes? I know you said something about what benefit comes with, with country hosting huge tournaments like the AFCON.
Well, a lot of commercial benefits come in. And the Nigerians who are in Garua will tell you that that city of Garua, the natives enjoyed a lot of commercial patronage all through the tournament. So there's a lot of economic benefits that come, infrastructural development of your stadium, although that comes with what happens after. Because we've seen a lot of countries, even the Western world, host mega events, and then the infrastructure goes to waste after because it's going to be underutilized. So you have to think of long-term legacy impact of hosting events. But in the immediate, and there's a lot of economic benefits, there's a lot of activities, sponsors come, there's a lot of activation, a lot of people, there's a lot of travel and tourism, and then that travel and tourism will lead to repeat travelers who might come back later because they like what they saw in your country and become, that boosts your tourism revenue and all of that. And then even like we said, your players enjoy a lot of recognition, a lot of respect, and I'm sure the Cameroonian economy, you can measure these things, and they'll be able to say, for hosting this Nations Cup, this is the benefits we get. But it's also very, very expensive to host this event. So when you balance it out, is it a plus? Is it a profit or a deficit? I mean, that remains to be seen. But it does have a lot to do with the overall image of the country. You are seen positively, at least for those 3-4 weeks. Everybody focuses on your country and they see the good side of your country. And that can only be good.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you for that. Today I read something on the dailies in Nigeria because I read some of the Nigerian dailies and listened to the news. The NFF retained Austin Eguavon. Could it be because of the AFCON, the Senegalese, with the indigenous coach winning? Could you shed more light on why the change of?
I'll be very blunt. I'll be very blunt. I think Eguavon was retained because some higher authorities insisted on it. I don't think it was an NFF decision. I think probably the minister, probably the presidency refused to sanction the employment of a foreign coach. I think that's why Eguavon was retained. Secondly, the NFF will look at the situation where if you bring in a foreign coach now and he fails to qualify for the World Cup, how are you going to explain that? How are you going to justify that? So I believe their hands were forced and they had to stick with Eguavon. And to be honest with you, Eguavon had only 2 weeks, I think at most, with that team. And apart from 1 or 2 players that he picked as replacement, the squad was not his. So I think under the circumstances, when people are trying, you can't compare him to somebody who had 3, 4, 5 years with the team. He had 2 weeks at most. And he produced what you can call decent results. For the first time in a long time, Nigerians were happy watching the Super Eagles play. So I don't have any problems with him being retained, but I think NFF's hand were forced. It was not what they wanted to do, because now they still, despite the fact that they have named him, they still put that interim tag to his name. So I think they've still left that door open, and that confirms my suspicion that their hand was forced, because what it means is that if Eguavon doesn't qualify for the World Cup, they have an excuse to replace him. Even if he qualifies, they can come up and say, well, this is a bigger stage, a bigger tournament, we will need a more experienced hand, blah, 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 blah. Because if you're going to name him a substantive coach, why are you still tagging him interim? So that's why I feel probably the minister, probably the presidency told them point blank, no, we don't want a foreign coach at this stage. And of course, in their normal way, they had not tidied up, they had not dotted the I's and crossed the T's before they announced Pesero. And there were issues, there were still contractual issues there. Why they announced the man when they are not tidied up with him, only they can explain that. But I feel that their hand was forced and they were actually left with no choice but to retain Eguavon and just try to make some tweaks here and there And hopefully, we wish Egov all the best. I think he has enough to be able to qualify for the World Cup with the team that we have, and hopefully he will do the just that.
Wow. In as much as I hate to say we've come to the end of this broadcast, of this interview, I want to say thank you for honoring us. We really appreciate you. We thank you for the insightful analysis you've given us. I'm sure most of our followers must have learned one or two things about the competition. We want to say thank you. We hope to see you again. And when we call upon you, we hope you will answer us and you give us your an audience once again. Thank you very much to our viewers. We've come to the end of the program where we're going to say thank you. And if you've not been following us, please kindly click on the subscribe button. Follow us for more insightful interviews like this. From me, my name is Jide. Till next time, I'll say bye-bye.
Thank you, Jide. Bye.